to be in this new space and beautiful Mill Creek City Hall. I know that we've all talked about it. We've mentioned it before. It's just been an immense amount of work, and just excited to be here and move forward in this way. So appreciate you all. With that, we'll move into item 3, appointment of Chief Mark Olson as Professional Standards Division Chief. Hear from Chief Nazrin.
Do you have to turn this on? Does it work? It's working okay? Okay, sounds like it's working. Good morning, board. It's good to be here, and I agree with you, Mayor. It's nice to kind of have this new exciting start. So we appreciate the accommodations that Mill Creek has made for us. First off, according to the interlocal agreement, the board needs to approve some of these appointed chief positions. So we're going to present a couple of those along with a deep recognition of gratitude. So the first one's going to be Chief Mark Olson. Please come on up. Now, I'm going to make this quick, but to preface this, I have to apologize to this guy. I've worked with him for a very long time, and he came in as the interim after Chief Ackerman left to the sheriff's office last October. And we worked so closely together and he was such a critical part of this whole reorg, and you know this, you've seen him every step of the way, that I kind of forgot that he was not actually the chief. He's functioning as the interim, and we kind of missed him in the promotion ceremony and everything else. And one of my fine colleagues pointed that out. Very much appreciate that, but that's my responsibility. So I want to apologize to you, but you have been a phenomenal force for change and good during this transition. So I know you've worked your guts out. So I'd like to present him to the board for ratification to the position of Professional Standards Division Chief and HR Director.
Great. Thank you. Unless there's any discussion from the board, Chief, we very much appreciate all the work that you've done. I know that you stepped into some interesting times, and it's been a lot of work, and we definitely appreciate it. If there is no other discussion on that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to appoint Chief Mark Olson as a Professional Standards Division Chief permanently.
I'll second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Thanks so much.
There you go. Sorry about that again. Next, Chief Andrew Reardon. As you know, part of the reorg, we took the the captain position, and we are going with appointed chiefs for a variety of reasons. One being accountability. And so Captain Andrew Reardon was one of the last captains we had, and feeling like putting him, the last. And making him a chief, I think, was the right thing to do. And again, integral part of this reorganization, and did so many things, especially on the tech side, the fleet side, the radio side, things that our officers can't function without. And so I want to present to you Chief Andrew Reardon with my thanks for ratification as the Technical Services Division Chief for the UPD.
I'll just state again, Chief, thank you for all of your work on this. I don't really know about anything that you actually do to make this transition happen, because it is not my expertise at all, but we very much appreciate all the work. I'm sure it has been absolutely chaotic and still a lot of work to be done. So.
And Mayor, we don't understand half of what he does either.
Yeah, good. I'm glad it's not just
okay.
I think it's a testament to how well he did, because we didn't hear much about the transition. It was that smooth. So
yeah.
Yep. All right. If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Chair, I will make a motion that we appoint Chief Dwayne Angewerden as Technical Services Division Chief.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Chief. All right, item 5, recognition of Lieutenant April Morse for her position as Acting Division Chief of Special Operations during the UPD reorganization. Chief Mazurek.
So this one's important to me personally. When we started this reorg, we had to change a bunch of things. We had to eliminate one of the divisions, but during that process, we had to have an interim chief for special operations. And April stepped into that role and just absolutely killed it on every level. Super accountable, very aggressive in the sense that saw a task or saw a need, jumped in and filled it, oftentimes without even being asked. And I had a number of conversations with her. And some of those conversations, it was about what's best for the department, what's best for the department. And very selfless type of leadership. So she is now going to be stepping down from that chief position to our internal affairs lieutenant, and our lieutenant professional standards will be working there, and have a lot of confidence and trust in her. And so I felt it was important that we recognize her for what she did and continues to do for the department. And I consider her a friend. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I just wanted to say, unlike the technology, I don't know anything about that either. But with April, I do have more input on that. Being in the canyon, that's under the Canyon Patrol, which was out of Special Op, which is what April took over. And one thing that I did notice that I wanted to point out is that she right away saw something that our community needed. We knew we needed it, but we didn't know how to solve it. And she dug in and without being asked and just said, hey, take a look at this, and provided, hard copy, digital copy, and just taking the initiative. So I really appreciated that. Thank you.
Well, I think we all recognize, and I'm sure there's folks that we miss in this, just because we've had through this reorganization so many different folks step up into really difficult and challenging positions, and truly just thank all of you for the work that's gone into this, and again, excited to move forward. Item 6, committee assignments. Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. One of the issues that we looked at in terms of matters that probably should be decided early on is if there's a need for the board to make any adjustments now that Salt Lake County has departed in committee assignments. And I've gone through it, and it looks like so far, at least the committees that are active, particularly the standing committees, seem fairly well balanced at this point. But I thought I would just see if there are any changes anybody wanted to make. I would say in looking at page 2, there are a couple of inactive committees. The interlocal committee and the legal valuation committees really have done their work already, and it's not necessary, I think, at this point that they continue. We are going to need action on the departure negotiating committee and on the operations study review committee at some point in the future. I don't know the timing of that. I think I'll leave that up to the chief and others, but at least in terms of the departure negotiating committee, we still have one more departure to negotiate, and it would be with Salt Lake County. So I would suggest in terms of that committee that we add 1 or maybe 2 members to provide a pretty broad cross-section of both the membership and as well as just to have the ability to meet with on a fairly regular basis, update, and then we can update the board in either an open or a closed session as appropriate, but to bounce ideas off of and have them sit in on discussions we have where we're reaching the substance of whatever our discussions are with Salt Lake County. So in looking at it, I think that it looks like the other committees are fairly well balanced. Other than that one, it seems like we could use one or two more members. So with that, I submit it to the board. If they want to make any changes in any of the committees, they can. But that's the one I would suggest additional membership on.
Harry, just my quick thoughts for the board. I don't know if this adds any complications. Would it be, to me, they're just thinking about it, if it was just always, and assuming it's not that member that's leaving, the maybe the UPD board chair and the Slovisa board chair sit in those, on that committee.
Sure.
I think it's an excellent idea.
Rotates.
With that in mind, I would like to nominate the name just slipped my mind. Or yeah, Prokopas, Steve, since he's the chair of Savisa, if he could be on that committee for negotiating.
Okay.
Second.
Great. Would you like us to take action on that
I
individual?
think, yeah, just a vote approving it
Great.
would be
So-
fine.
So we've got a motion and a second to appoint Councilmember Prokopis to the, I'm forgetting the name of that committee, the Departure Negotiating Committee. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
In addition to that, since you said at least maybe one or two,
Yeah,
and I like the idea of having the department, the UPD chairperson also be on that, which would be, if you can handle that too.
Sounds great.
all right, thank you.
Do we, yeah, so we need to vote on that.
All right, we do have a motion and a second to appoint myself to the negotiating committee, departure negotiating committee. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Mayor Silvestrini, I just had to tell you, I'd like your council chambers here. I hope I didn't screw up your chair too much, but appreciate it.
Thank you. The only place that's nicer is the Oregon coast.
Fair enough. All right, move to item 7, which is the Labor Association update and labor nominee for UPD Merit Commission.
Good morning, board. So at this time, we'd actually like to have an extension on that nomination. We talked to Chief Mazrin and Harry about this, just to kind of figure out some of the candidates that we're looking at. So at this point, that's what we're asking for. And if that's okay by the board and chair. And then,
Does that impact the next item?
There aren't any matters other than and so first of so that in the event something happens that there's an official merit place, yes, wait until they has
Okay. I guess with that, then I would just ask for a motion to table this item until labor is ready. For a
perfect. I
future
would
meeting.
appreciate that. And if I could, we have 2 new trustee members on our board that we'd like to introduce today. Got Dacia and Mike Capello. So they would be helping out with a lot of stuff going on the UPD side of the house. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would motion to table that.
Great. Thank you.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to table. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that item is tabled. We'll move on to item 8, which is Chief of Police nominations for the UPD Merit Commission.
Thank you, Chair. So with that being said, what we'd like to do is go ahead and nominate two others. Our Merit Commission currently consists of 3 members. All 3 have done a good job. You have retired Chief Chris Bertram, who has a background in law enforcement. And then we have David Salazar, whose background is in HR. And then we have Martha Stonebrook. Her background has been in legal, and she's been an attorney in the past. So it's been a good mix. They've been very effective for us. I feel like their decisions are well thought out, reasonable, fair. So with that being said, my recommendation to you moving forward with this very important appointment is going to be Chris Bertram and Dave Salazar would be my recommendation. That third will be left to labor according to the agreement on who they want to put in there. So any questions on maybe those 2 nominations? They're currently the ones we've had for a few years now, so they're vetted and are really good people.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
thank you. So I'm personally familiar with both Martha Stonebrook and Dave Salazar, and I highly recommend that we approve the chief's recommendation on this.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Oh, Harry, can you turn your mic on?
Is it on now? Do I need to repeat
Yes,
what
it's
I
on
said, or
now.
did everybody hear it?
So Harry, we're going to approve resolution 24-07-02, appointing Chris Bertram and David Salazar, and we'll follow up with another amended resolution adding the labor.
Yes.
Is that what you want?
Yeah, so because we need a merit commission in place, we're requesting action on the 2 nominees and deferring action on the third. But that way, at least we can have a merit commission meeting should we need one. And then when labor nominates its nominee, we will then request action on that, bringing the merit commission to full staffing.
Now I've got another clarification question. So this is item 8. So are you asking we approve these 2 from Chief Mazarin, and then we'll go to item 9 and then vote again with the clarification that the third
Correct.
is still vacant? Okay. So
Why do we need 2? Isn't the resolution approving the 2? Wouldn't we just go to 9 and
It
just?
it should be, yes. There was a in terms of this, there was going to be the labor nominee, then the chief's nominees, and then the item 9, I think, is duplicative of item 8 and 7, but it was to allow the nominations to be presented and then a vote on the nominees. I think we can move to item 9 now, based upon the fact that the nominations have been submitted. And so I think the approval is for the resolution now. So I do think we should move to item 9.
okay. So item 9, appoint UPD Merit Commission, Resolution 24-07-02. Just had a discussion on that. Is there any further questions, discussion?
Well, just with the clarification, we'll be appointing Chris Bertram and David Salazar, and we'll have a further appointment coming from labor.
Correct.
Yes.
Great.
That's my motion.
Thank you so much.
I second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. Item 10, UPD update, Chief Mazarin and Chief Olson.
Great. Well, I'll give you a quick update. I've got a lot of notes here, but I'm gonna hit on the big ones. A lot is happening. And the the term that's being used right now is we are creating our new normal. And I've heard that a lot from our folks. And it is a new normal, and there's a lot of good things that are happening. But right now, we're trying to settle in. I hate to use the term sweep up, but as this transition and reorganization has been so complex, and there's so many little things that we didn't see or didn't look at. For instance, it's something as simple as a business card or a phone roster, some of the things that we've kind of always had, but then we realized, geez, we need to change all that. And so there's been a tremendous amount of effort to go through those things and look at opportunities where we can improve things, create efficiencies in very simple ways that are either operationally an improvement or cost-wise a savings, but it's created all sorts of opportunities for us to do that. We're going through all our contracts, we're looking at our billing, making those adjustments as needed. And that has gone actually fairly smoothly so far. We're still doing an active search for some properties, especially for the property and evidence piece of it. I will be bringing some information on that to all of you in the near future, as that is a high priority project. A couple other things, our IT was really important. And I do have to give a shout out to Salt Lake County IT that we have our contract with. They really stepped up in a number of ways to help us get online and make sure things were running smoothly. Another group that should get some recognition in terms of what we're doing right now is our fleet. That was a huge project, and our fleet is a very expensive, important asset to this department. And our fleet folks and commanders managed that incredibly well, to where we could get what needed to go to the sheriff's office, what belonged to them, but retain what we needed for our fleet to maintain our fleet's health, to maintain it in a financially positive direction. And you'll see later there's a resolution for some surplus of vehicles, but that went really well. And that was a tough project. That was a really tough project, but everybody has a car. Everybody has a good car that's functioning on both sides, and that went really well. In addition, and Mark will talk about this in a minute, we are still hiring. And just yesterday, we did 4 interviews with 4 really good candidates that we're going to pick up. And so we're consistently, our Sergeant Dawson, our HR sergeant, has just consistently been hitting that drum and having people come in. And I will tell you, it's been really interesting, and I want to make sure our UPD folks hear this, but there's been a constant theme as people have come into these interviews, and we ask them, why do you want to come to UPD? And they're aware of all this, change and shifting, and they know what's happening. They're talking about it, and they'll ask questions about it, but we say, why do you want to come to UPD? The number one thing that is attracting those folks to our department is our people talking to them, or they said, well, I talked to so-and-so at UPD, or I have a friend at UPD, and they said, come here, come over here. This is a good thing. There's good things happening here. And it's a constant theme. We hear it all the time. And it's really probably our most powerful recruiting tool right now is our personnel, the people in this room, and our officers out on the streets that are attracting others to come to the UPD. So very optimistic about that. The 4 we interviewed yesterday are going to be real good additions to the department. So that's an absolute full effect. I think it should be stated some of our accomplishments that happened during the reorganization. I'll hit the main ones. We were able to stay within the overall 7% increase. We were able to craft a budget with needed adjustments and keep that where it had to be. We realigned and reorganized the precincts and the divisions and made those as efficient as possible with some changes, and we're still working through those changes. We're still smoothing edges out and some of those units that combined, or some areas where we had to pull away, looking at those responsibilities and putting them elsewhere, or eliminating certain things that we were doing. But we were able to do that without a serious impact to the service levels that people are receiving. A major one that was a goal for everybody involved in this, was to ensure that everyone had employment at the end of the day. And I'm happy to say, more than you can believe, that that was accomplished. Very much so. And in fact, both the sheriff's office and the UPD still need folks, but we'd rather be in that posture than have to tell people you don't have a job. And so that could have gone a lot of directions, but it didn't, and it worked out really well. So that's one of the things that I think we should all be most proud about. Another huge accomplishment, within about a week period, we moved out of the sheriff's office building on 33rd and 9th West into the different precincts. And we did that in an economic and efficient way with almost no interruption to service. I mean, that was a major lift. It was done in a few days. And I had personally had all sorts of concerns. And just because that's how my mind works, like anticipating issues, anticipating problems so we could get in front of them. You know, that's what you should do. You need to always be ready, you know, for that, what's going to happen. But I'll tell you what, our folks rallied and they stepped up and they just knocked this thing out of the park. Great examples are forensics folks. I was trying to envision in my head how that was going to play out. They moved that lab from down there to this building. They set up downstairs and it looked like chaos. And within a few days, I walked down there and I couldn't believe my eyes. And I hope you'll have a chance to see that. They have a fully functioning forensics lab downstairs. It was amazing. And every precinct came together, and everything from construction, ripping things down and building things up and getting equipment and computers and cubicles, whatever we needed, coming together and making that happen in a really fast way that had almost no impact to service. And again, my job is to anticipate problems and try to get in front of those. But I was amazed at how smooth the transition was. And I was amazed at how few problems we had. And did we have problems? Yeah, we had a lot of them, but they were minor and they were really easy to fix and fix quickly. And that's because our people really came together as a team and worked really hard to make this work. And they deserve all the credit in the world. So that was a huge step for us. Another thing, we've established some cooperative agreements. I know we've talked about that a number of times, and I'll probably fill you in more on that later as those develop. But you know, probably the big one you need to know about is that we currently have an agreement with Salt Lake County for property and evidence and special ops. So we have personnel that are down there in that building still. And we have our property and evidence, our evidence technicians are down there taking care of the evidence until we can get that sorted out. So I'll continue to update you that on that very important piece as that develops. A couple things for the future. There's going to be some changes in the way that our command staff meetings and our command runs, and some changes in commander responsibilities. You'll notice they're wearing a different insignia now. And what that's going to do is what I would like to see is all of our commanders, our division and precinct commanders, become more involved in some of the broader law enforcement activities within Salt Lake County, and some of the duties that where they're going to have opportunities to go out and build relationships and be more involved in some of those things. But it's not going to take away from your precincts, your divisions. It's actually going to enhance it, because they're going to have connections and they're going to meet people face to face, and they're going to have a say, and they're going to represent the department at some of these other important organizations and at the table, you know, where there'll be lots of UPD there. There'll be a UPD presence in more of these groups. So that's, to me, is really important. And I think it's going to have really positive effects and benefits for the whole department and for your individual cities and towns and precincts. So one other thing, we have a lieutenant's test scheduled. We burned up our lieutenant's list, and we're probably gonna do the same with the sergeant's list. As we've done these wonderful promotions and giving people opportunities to do things and enhance their own careers. And so we will be scheduling that and give people more opportunities to step into leadership positions and do some of those important tasks. The final thing I want to mention, well, actually there's two. when we started the reorg, I had this vision of, and in talking to a colleague who does strategic plans for the military, he had floated this idea with me a few times, and I thought, we really need to look at that because UPD in my time there, we've never had a strategic plan, and we need to have one, especially right now. And so in sitting down with him and having some discussions, one was a particularly long discussion. When we started the reorg, if you look at the transition plan that I put out at the very beginning, when I didn't know what I was doing and didn't know what was going on, the transition plan had a project manager for a strategic plan. Well, I was hoping that we could do that during this reorg, but it turned out as I started to get deeper in the reorg, I realized that's not the right use of resources right now. And there's other more important things as the thing developed. We were laying track in front of us. We went because we'd never been through that kind of experience. So we put that on ice for a while, but now that we're where we're at, as we're doing some of this cleanup and some of these small housekeeping tasks, it's time to get that strategic plan back online. So we're gonna have a strategic plan project manager. The command staff will be heavily involved in that strategic plan and how that looks going forward. And then you all will be part of looking at that and giving input and approving that with your permission to move us forward in a good direction. So I think that's really important. That's going to be a get priority tasking here in the very near future. So those are some of the things that are happening right now. And there's a lot more, but I know we have some time constraints on the meeting today, and I want to let Mark do his part. I also want to say one last thing is we had the press conference yesterday for the officer involved shooting in Kearns. Went really well, and all the officers were cleared, and we're very fortunate that none of our officers were injured or killed in that event because it was really close. But I went to the press conference with Mr. Gill, and I think he gave a very fair portrayal of what happened based on the facts as the district attorney's investigator saw it. And so I commend our officers who did a great job, support them 100%. They did their duty, and they're doing well, and we're going to move forward. There was the shooting in Magna, one that involved all the officers. I asked the district attorney, I said, when's that going to be done? Because, when you have that hanging over you, it's hard on our men and women. They want to get those things resolved and get that letter done and put it behind them. But that'll hopefully be done here in the next month or so. So any questions for me? That's all I have. Dang. Wow. Okay.
Thanks, Chief. Mark.
Go ahead.
Okay. As Chief Mazarin mentioned during his update, the challenge through the reorg was to keep everybody employed. And we're very grateful that that was the end case. We never stopped hiring during that process, even though we had some reservations at some times. And I'm glad we didn't. We ended up 29 people short after it was all said and done. That includes a little bit of natural attrition as well. There were 75 sworn members that ended up going to the sheriff's office. And that left us a little bit shorthanded. So our challenge going forward is to backfill those. Fortunately, we've seen a little bit of an uptick in our applications in the last 2 months. I think some of this upheaval coming to an end has reassured some folks, and we're starting to see more applications, which is a good thing. As Chief Mazarin mentioned, they did some interviews yesterday. We've got 2 individuals that we are going to hire and put into the academy in August. There's a class that starts August 19th. So we'll get those folks going. We've got some laterals in the pipeline as well. And we have a rehire. It's actually a former member that ended up leaving to go to Harriman when they left and is looking to come back now. So we're working on all of that. We're going full steam ahead as fast as we can, and we're hopeful that we can get as many as 15 hires done by the end of the year. So just to give you an idea of where we are, you all have in your packet the numbers there. You can see per precinct how many you're down and how many encumbrances you have of folks that are in training currently. In the civilian world, there's a one error here. So this property and evidence manager has been filled. So that is now an evidence technician that we're short. We promoted from internally for that position. Mark Gonzalez was appointed as the property and evidence manager. We're down a couple of, well, one information service specialist or records technician. We're down a forensics technician. And so we're doing pretty good in the civilian world. We have a fiscal manager that we're down as well. That was Rick Moon that ended up going to the county. All of those positions are posted. We're actively working to get those filled. So we'll have those done as quick as we can. In the candidate pipeline, as I mentioned, we've had 9 applications this month. Those folks will do the PT test in August. We have 6 entry-level candidates in the background process, 4 lateral candidates in the initial interview. Those were some of those that were done yesterday. 2 candidates in the background or lateral candidates in the background process. And then the 2 entry-level candidates that we've hired that will go to the academy, as I mentioned. And then that 1 potential former employee that would be a rehire. So we're looking good that way. As far as the annual attrition report, we've lost 97 folks this year. That includes the 75 that went to the county. So if you factor that out, we've lost 22 people just to natural attrition this year. And if you look at the historical numbers there, you can see that puts us a little bit hot, but not concerningly so. Yeah, absolutely.
I can't remember what the total number of sworn was of the
I believe we landed at 248.
over 10% vacancies.
Yeah, it is concerning, and operationally, it is going to cause some problems. You know, the precinct chiefs are keenly aware of what's going on. They're working with each other to try and right size that ship. We've had a lot of internal movement to try and spread that load out and make sure that everybody's getting what they need. It's just going to be a tough time for a little bit until we can get those positions backfilled.
I think it's fair to say, though, we knew this might be coming down the pipe because we just didn't know how many were going to go to the county. We were hoping it was more like 60. Yeah. And, you know, the other issue is, you know, the 29 sounds bad, but we've never been full anyway. And so we're always down a little bit, but I certainly see where, especially Midvale, Kearns and Magna, I mean, that's concerning.
Yeah.
And is there anything, I mean, do we ever go outside the box in terms of, is there anything we can do proactively to try to get folks that want to get into policing to come to UPD? As so the lateral thing's nice, but the lateral thing's not going to solve a long-term problem, which I think we need to get people in from the bottom up.
I agree.
And balance out the tenures. So is there anything you think we could do or consider or pass on to a committee to work with staff to maybe think outside the box in terms of attracting new officers to UPD?
So Sergeant Dawson has been attending job fairs. We got an opportunity with Hill Air Force Base to go up and do a piece there next month. A job fair there for members coming out of the military that are looking for employment. That's a great candidate pool for us. Usually those folks are really good hires. We've also talked about doing some advertising. We have a fairly limited budget, but Chief Hoyle has actually got a contact at UTA. He's looking into what it would cost to do some bus advertising, put some billboards on buses. You know, we've talked about Sergeant Dawson is going to reach out to the satellite academies, Salt Lake Community College, Weber State, even Southern Utah University. Some of those colleges have satellite police academies, and folks that sponsor themselves through the academy. We'll be reaching out to them to try and attract some of those candidates. Social media advertising is a good way to reach a lot of people. We've got a social media presence for that purpose. So we're doing what we can do. We've talked about radio advertising, perhaps those kind of things. Those are a little bit more expensive. And so that would take some budgetary contribution to get those done. But yeah, it's certainly on the radar. It's a huge concern. So we're doing what we can do to work through that. As far as monthly attrition, again, you can see in June, we had the 75 that left for the county. That's what that number is. In July, we had 4, 2 retired and 2 resigned. And we've already received 1 retirement and 1 resignation that will be effective in August. And that 29 is reflective of those people leaving. So that won't be an addition.
Some of these late resignations, are they late offers from the county?
No, not to my knowledge. One of the resignations in July was one of our officers that ended up going to the University of Utah. And so, I mean, that's just natural. We generally roll 3 to 4 sworn members a month, just through natural attrition. So that's not unusual. And then obviously the retirements that come up. So as far as the hiring timeline, again, I just go over that with you. You can see that first academy block, they're completed. They are now assigned. And that's how long these take. Those folks were hired in November. And they were assigned in July, done with training. So it's a process. It takes a long time to get these folks trained and out there. So we always try and keep people in that pipeline. We've got 1 candidate that is graduating the academy this afternoon. We'll be attending that. And then we have 2 additional candidates that are in the academy that started in May. And then again, we've got the 2 that'll be starting in August. So try and do what we can to keep that pipeline rolling. And then as far as our total numbers, as far as eligibility for retirement, you can see here, this URS time is really the best gauge of that, in my opinion. And so you can see we have 69 folks that are eligible today that could retire. Within 5 years, that number will be 133. So that's kind of where we are as far as staffing. Are there any other questions? Certainly, if you feel that we could be doing something differently, I'm absolutely open to suggestions. So,
You know, I just want to make a brief comment, Chair, if that's okay, before we move out of this. I know this is challenging, and and I know we just got done with this transition, but the budget season's going to be here before we know it.
Right.
And I want to commend all of the members, one, for working together collaboratively to get the shared services components placed in individual precincts. I thought it was phenomenal effort by everybody involved to even get this transition done by this point. I would question 6 months ago whether we could pull it off. But now we're going to focus on UPD going forward. And my big concern, I guess not concern, but I just want to remind everybody that the budget season will be here pretty quick. And I know we've got shared services components spread out. Property and evidence and special ops, I think, is a unique situation that I know has to be placed. But as we start moving through that process, I just want to make sure we keep in mind that our number 1 priority should be making sure we can be competitive on markets and COLAs come next budget season. And so before we get overly aggressive about, trying to bring a headquarters together, those kinds of pressures, if it's going to involve an ongoing expense, I think we should be very careful about that. Sovisa is going to have its own challenges now that we've got everybody placed, and they start working through their issues. And I just want to make sure that we're not making decisions that are going to add to the budget, and 9 or 10 months down the road, put us in a difficult situation in terms of being competitive on markets and COLAs, because I think that's going to have to be our number one priority. We can't go into a budget season and have to skimp on that. I think it'll send a bad message to our members. So I just want that to be, it's a concern I have, and I think everybody should be aware of it, staff and the board, about, being in a big hurry to consolidate everybody if it's going to add to the expense of the organization and impact our ability to be competitive on a wage standpoint. So I know it's July, but I think we need to start thinking about it now, because March will be here pretty quick.
Absolutely. Well, and from a recruiting standpoint, certainly wages are important, and that will help us in that regard. Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
My apologies, one more quick item, and thanks for that comment. It's heard loud and clear. As you know, our friend Rick Moon left us. Did a great job for us, but I wanted to let you know that we have temporarily replaced him with someone that's just going to assist us while we're in this transition, because obviously, as you can imagine, the financial part of this is huge. Offboarding all these folks going to the county and some of the things as we make these adjustments. And so we have temporarily hired somebody to fill that gap, and he comes in the evenings and works for a few hours. And so former employee and has done a great job. So I just want to throw that out there, that finance piece is going smoothly, and our finance folks are working very, very hard, especially right now as we're this week is cutting those final checks for those former UPD employees. So that's been a lot of work, but that's being handled. So I want to make you aware of that. Thank you,
Chief. Item 11, Chief, don't go too far. Approval of surplus resolution 240703.
Again, as I mentioned before on your resolution there, our fleet has done a magnificent job of handling a very difficult transition. And part of that, we held on to a number of vehicles. Now it's time to start offloading those and surplusing those vehicles out. So on your list there, you'll see 22 vehicles that need to go to auction or for sale to other groups so we can collect that revenue and put that back into our fleet fund. Pretty straightforward.
Any questions, discussion on that? I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve resolution 240703.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. Item 12, approval of policy 200, resolution 240704. We'll hear from Harry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when we first started the interlocal redrafting process, we looked at the question of how do we go about picking chiefs and how we're going to structure the department. And ultimately, after some discussion within the interlocal drafting process, the decision was made to put in the interlocal that there will be a policy approved by the board that actually answers these questions, so that at some point in the future, we could make a change without having it go back through the entire interlocal process. And so committee that essentially has been working on this are the precinct and division chiefs and the chief to come up with a selection process with input from the members as to how we're going to structure the command structure of the organization. So ultimately, after considering some options such as a committee approach or a strong chief and everything else is advisory, we came up with an idea that essentially is an executive team that would be meet and advise the chief, but that the chief is the final authority on matters involving the department. And ultimately, the chief answers to this board. And this board has the authority to exercise its authority over the chief and on matters of policy and decision. Nonetheless, what this sets up are, first of all, a command structure that has the chief as the UPD. There will be an executive committee made up of all of our precinct and division chiefs, and that there will be a vice chair selected from them who would also participate in perhaps other meetings and discussions and report back to the other chiefs, but that the chief has still the final say. There is also a definition now. What we used to call deputy chiefs are now just either going to be precinct chiefs or division chiefs. And there's a selection process for the precinct chiefs that is defined in here in terms of actually that there's a 7-day posting period, after which then the member will be involved in the selection process. You need to be a lieutenant or above in order to apply to be a precinct or division chief. And then the member will actually be involved in submitting the candidate's name to the chief for approval, and that would be then submitted to the board. Any disputes between the member entity and the chief regarding the appointment of a candidate will be resolved by the UPD board. Reassignment follows this same sort of a process where the member and the chief, if they agree, can reassign a precinct chief. If they do not agree, then the matter would be brought before the UPD board for final decision. This spells out that in the event a chief is reassigned, they go back to their rank and they don't lose their merit rank. They simply would go back to a merit assignment within the department. The division chief's a little different. This one is the selection process is the chief selects a division chief and then submits that to the board for ratification and can reassign a division chief without consent of the board. This is simply to reflect that these are a little different positions. Let's see, I want to make sure I'm right on that. Yeah, civilian employees. There's a little bit of a change here to reflect the language in what is in the interlocal agreement, because prior to the old interlocal agreement required that the sheriff and the board both approve the removal of a civilian, and now the board has independent authority to remove a civilian appointee without the consent of the chief. Those are essentially the positions of CFO and chief legal counsel. So there are two ways to get rid of me. One is for the chief to recommend and you approve. The second is just you decide to do it. It's important when I say me, I'm talking about civilian appointees, but essentially it gives the board independent authority now to remove civilian appointees if for any reason you feel we're not doing our jobs or serving the organization. So under the new policy 200, it just reflects what's already in the interlocal when it says that. The provision regarding severance is something that was in the old interlocal itself. That was a policy that had been approved by the board. It just was continued as a policy forward. Ultimately, it says that if a civilian appointee is not retained and is separated, they will be entitled to severance up to 6 months, depending on their years of service. It's 1 month for each year of service. And if they're terminated for cause, they don't get severance. However, you can award it to them if you deem it in the organization's best interest. So that essentially sums up policy 200. And this can be changed later, but it was the intent that this must be approved by the board, and it could be changed by the board at some point in the future. But I thought I'd start with any questions or any suggested changes, and we can talk about them.
So Harry, my only question is the appointment of a precinct chief or the selection of a precinct chief. So that is required to go out to the organization for anybody, or could a precinct, if they say have a second in command that they know they want to be, do they have unilateral authority to appoint that person, or does it have to be opened up to the organization?
It has to be opened up under the policy, and it
Okay.
doesn't mean that you can't still select that person, but that it's a process so that the members know who else is interested. It's just meant to give people in the organization the opportunity to apply over a 7-day period, after which then the member can go through its own selection process in terms of how it chooses to do that. And of course, if they want to tap a second in command, they're free to do that. But this way, at least, there's an open process where others who are interested might be interested in applying. And there are times when that I think benefits the member entities to know who else is interested. And but it's still the call of the member to submit the name to the chief for nomination. And if there's a disagreement,
So it goes
can go to the
from
board.
the entity selects, then it goes to Chief Mazarin. Chief Mazarin basically approves that, and then it comes to the board. And so if there's an issue there, explain that. Because I
So-
know one of the members had an issue with that, I think, that we were trying to work that out. And has that been resolved? I guess is my question.
I'm not aware of the issue you're talking about, so I don't know if it's been resolved or not, but I think this is just to set up the process that, and what it says is if the members, let's say they choose somebody that the chief doesn't believe should be a precinct chief or a division chief, well, a precinct chief, I guess would be the case. Obviously there's going to be discussions back and forth during the process. And if that isn't resolvable, like the chief were to say, I don't believe this person should be a precinct chief. The member entity says, well, this is who we want. It would then go into probably a closed section over personnel matters to discuss the differences, and then come out in an open session for a vote on whether that person is selected or not. And the board would have final say under policy 200. That's how it would be handled.
It's my recollection that when we were talking about this originally, that there was conversation of the chief of police being able to just reassign any precinct chief. And we did not love that. We wanted to
Yeah.
make sure we had a say in it. I don't think we have any issue if there happens to be a disagreement that it coming to the board.
And the reassignment provisions are the same, essentially in reverse, that if they both agree, the person can be reassigned. If there's a disagreement, it would come to the board for final say on whether the person is reassigned or not.
So this really isn't much different than anything we've been doing to this
No.
point. And so I would just hope we'd never get to the point where the board would have to intervene. Okay, thanks.
You bet. Are there any other questions?
Great. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve policy 200, resolution 24-07-04.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion. Second. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That
Thank you.
passes. Thank you. All right. Upcoming meetings. We've got the next UPD board meeting on Thursday, August 15th at 9 a.m. Here at Mill Creek City Hall. And then scheduling of date for board members to tour the new UPD locations. Does any administration want to speak to that? I assume we just want to get something out to schedule to get people to go see the new locations if they want to.
I just had a thought on that. I know that I would like to see it, but I could probably reach out to
Mr. Chair, Jeff, that the tour of the facilities is something that I actually asked that we do so that the board members get to see how the department's functioning and we see what kind of facilities our guys are working in. And I think it's an opportunity for us to evaluate that.
Perfect.
say on an individual basis, we could use our precinct chief to go tour that rather than try to coordinate all of our calendars and schedules together.
Maybe Harmony, we try to set up some of those tours, and then for members that can't make those work, then we can set that up with our individual chiefs. All right, any other meetings should be aware of? Great. Item 14, approval of June 12, 2024 UPD meeting minutes. Unless there's any changes to those, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. We've got a motion to approve those minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
You've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Other business. I've got one item. One of the things that at least at Midvale we've been talking about, we had a couple weeks ago, I think it was ABC4 reached out to me for an interview. The article that came out, it was largely the sheriff being interviewed, but it was really interesting as this reporter was talking to me, and he was saying, well, I thought UPD was just going away, and they wanted clearly a big story about, wait, what's going on with these communities. But I know as I've talked to some residents too, there's also been some, even though I feel like we've done a good job of putting stuff out, there's clearly still confusion. And so one of the things we've been talking about, and I think it's a good point of, as we talk about recruitment as well, is the idea around if we should consider bringing on for a period of time a communications consultant of some sort to help us both just message out to all of our communities about what UPD is looking like and the great service to our community, and also potentially being able to get some materials out of that to be able to use for officer recruitment. Just something I'm interested in. I don't know if this board would have any interest. We can continue conversations at that point if there is interest in doing that. I had a really short conversation with Chief Mazarin about that. But just wanted to throw that out there and see if anybody would not like to do that, I guess. And then we can kind of continue conversations.
Mayor,
Yes.
I like the idea that it does involve dollars though, but at the same time, I feel like that could potentially bring more folks to want to come and be employed by be a part of UPD, which is obviously a big thing that we're worried about too. So it's twofold, but I feel that probably in the long term, not only helps bring people want to come work for UPD, but also helps clarify the communities, what's happening, and that it is still very much functioning. And
Well, and by no means is this saying, let's just jump into, I mean, I think part of it, if the board is interested, that would help move forward, at least to figure out what would that cost look like to do. I think we've got a great PIO as an organization, but that's a little different than being a communications person. And I know as I've talked with my own communications director, I doubt any of our individual communities have that. Like she doesn't have the time to take on all of this for UPD. And so it's just something we've been talking about. Yeah, we definitely have to consider the cost, but I think it'd be worth it to kind of move down that path and at least explore it more and see if it's something that's feasible for us.
Mr. Chair, I think it's a good idea that we do that, especially if we focus on recruitment and retention. There may be some aspects that PR firm might be that we don't. So, obviously, what I'm going to spend on that, but maybe
It's a one-time effort to get a good consolidated message out, right? Yeah.
I think that's my basic thinking.
I agree. Hopefully it needs to be sooner than later though, right? Hopefully in the next couple months you could get, but I like the idea. I think it needs to happen.
I do too, because there are questions, even, in my community, I've spent so much time in the past year trying to educate them, but there's still confusion. It's hard for people that are not spending time on it to see what's happening.
And I think when that legislation was passed, there was a ton of news about it, and then there really hasn't been. So I think some of those original stories, that's still what's lingering in people's mind, even though we're all in it and don't feel that way. I think that is still out there. So, okay, thank you. Any other business? Ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.